You're sitting somewhere quiet, maybe your kitchen late at night or your car after work, and you open your banking app again, not because you're broke, but because something feels off. You make money, you pay your bills, and on paper your life looks stable, but deep down it feels like nothing is really moving forward. You make money, you pay your bills, and on paper your life looks stable, but deep down it feels like nothing is really moving forward. You know this feeling. There's no big mistake you can point to, no obvious failure, but there's also no real progress, and that's what makes it harder to understand. This isn't bad luck, this is math. The gap between where you are and where you thought you'd be by now keeps growing, slowly enough to ignore, but fast enough to matter. You start asking yourself if you're doing something wrong or missing something important, because logically things should be working better. And the uncomfortable truth is you are missing something, but it's not a strategy or opportunity, it's something much simpler. This is not a money problem, this is a behavior problem. Because the difference between people who stay stuck and people who build wealth is not income, it's what they repeatedly do. The habits that matter most don't look impressive, they don't feel powerful, and they don't give fast results. But they compound. And over time, these small habits create a gap so large that two people with the same salary end up in completely different lives. Meet Mark and Alex, same age, same city, same job level, both earning around $80,000 a year. If you saw them today, nothing would stand out. Same routines, same conversations, same lifestyle. But fast forward 10 years, and the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Mark has investments, savings, and options, while Alex is still checking his balance before small purchases. That's not talent, that's accumulation. Let's start with something simple, a car, because this is where small decisions start creating real financial consequences. Mark buys a 3-year-old car while Alex buys a brand new one, same model, same function. The moment Alex drives off the lot, around 20% of the value disappears instantly. That's not a purchase, that's depreciation. Mark never pays that cost because he buys after the drop, getting the same car for significantly less. The difference in monthly payment is around $200, which doesn't feel like a life-changing number. It feels small, it feels manageable, it feels harmless. It's not small. Over time, that $200 invested monthly grows into tens of thousands of dollars. That's not spending, that's redirecting your future. Now stack that same decision over time, because this is where things stop looking small and start becoming serious. Mark keeps his car for 10 years while Alex upgrades every 3 or 4, resetting the entire cycle again and again. Each upgrade feels like progress, like improvement, like you're moving forward in life. It's not progress, it's a reset. Every time Alex upgrades, he restarts payments, absorbs new depreciation, and extends the timeline. Mark finishes paying and continues driving, while Alex keeps restarting the same financial cycle again and again. That's where the gap starts, not from one big decision, but from small ones repeated over time. Now let's move to something bigger, housing, because this is where decisions become long-term commitments. Both Mark and Alex get approved for the same mortgage amount, and the bank tells them they can afford it. Alex takes the maximum because technically he qualifies and it feels like the right decision. Mark chooses less, not because he has to, but because he wants breathing room and flexibility. The difference is around $500 a month, which doesn't feel extreme when your income is stable. It feels reasonable, it feels justified, it feels like a small upgrade in your life. It's not comfort, it's cost. Over time, that $500 difference turns into hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the real problem isn't the money, it's what happens to your flexibility and options. When you max out your budget, you remove your safety margin completely. One unexpected expense, one change in income, and suddenly everything becomes tight. That's not a life problem. That's a margin problem. Now zoom out, because this isn't about cars or houses. It's about the system around you. There is an entire system designed to keep people financially average. Not broke, not rich, just stuck in the middle. The dealership shows you monthly payments instead of total cost, because that's what feels affordable. Subscriptions are easy to start but intentionally difficult to cancel because friction keeps you paying. Credit cards offer flexibility, but that flexibility comes with a cost most people underestimate. Every upgrade feels justified because it always seems affordable in the moment. It's not affordable, it's delayed cost. None of these decisions feel dangerous, and that's exactly why they work so well. Because if it felt dangerous, you wouldn't do it. And that's where most people lose, not in one moment, but in patterns they never question. Now let's talk about investing, because this is where most people think the difference is made. And this is where most people get it wrong, not because they lack information, but because of how they behave. Mark keeps it simple. He invests in index funds every month automatically, without trying to outsmart the system. He doesn't react to headlines, he doesn't chase trends, he doesn't panic when the market moves. He understands one thing: consistency over time beats almost everything else. Alex does what most people do: he waits, he researches, he tries to understand everything before starting. It feels smart, it feels careful, it feels like the responsible thing to do. But most of the time, waiting turns into delay, and delay turns into lost time. Time is the asset you don't get back. Sometimes Alex invests, but when the market drops, he reacts and pulls his money out. You've done this before? Watched something go down and felt like you had to act immediately. That feeling is not strategy, it's emotion, and emotion is expensive. Here's what the data shows: the market returns around 10% over time, but the average investor earns closer to 7%. Not because of the market, but because of behavior. That 3% difference doesn't feel important. It feels small and easy to ignore. It's not small, it's compounding. Over 30 years, that small difference becomes over $1 million. That's not investing skill. That's behavior over time. Mark removes himself from the process while Alex keeps interfering with it. And that's where mistakes happen, not in the market, but in your reactions to it. Now let's talk about automation, because this is where behavior becomes predictable. Mark sets everything once and then lets the system work without needing motivation. Money moves before he sees it, which means he never has to decide again. Alex does everything manually, which means every month becomes a decision. And every decision creates friction, and friction slowly breaks consistency. Consistency doesn't fail, systems do. Now we get to the part that quietly drains the most money, and almost nobody notices it happening. Not big purchases, not dramatic mistakes, just small daily decisions that feel like normal life. Mark cooks most of his meals, not perfectly, not every day, just consistently enough to make a difference. Alex orders more often because he's tired, busy, and it feels easier in the moment. It feels small, it feels harmless, it feels like just another normal decision. It's not harmless, it's repetition. $10 here, 15 there, nothing that feels worth thinking about. But over a year that becomes thousands, and over decades it becomes six figures. That's not food spending, that's financial leakage. You've done this before, chosen the easier option because it didn't feel important enough to question. Now let's add subscriptions, because this is where money disappears quietly. They're small, they're automatic, and they're designed to be forgotten. $10, $15, $20, it doesn't feel like anything serious until it's $200 a month. And over a year, that's thousands leaving your account without attention. That's not cheap, that's unnoticed. Mark checks regularly and removes what he doesn't use, keeping things simple and controlled. Alex doesn't, not because he's careless, but because it's easy to ignore. And ignoring small costs is how they become big ones. Now, impulse spending, this is where emotion takes over completely. You see something, it looks useful, interesting, or deserved, and you buy it immediately. Not big purchases, just small ones that feel insignificant. $30, $50, $80, nothing that feels like a real decision. It's not the amount, it's the frequency. Mark waits before buying anything non-essential, giving himself time to think. And most of the time, the urge disappears completely. That's not discipline, that's delay. And delay changes decisions more than motivation ever will. Now let's talk about debt, because this is where things stop being slow and start becoming heavy. Not extreme debt, not disaster, just normal balances that feel manageable every month. 5,000, 10,000, minimum payments that feel under control. It's not under control, it's compounding against you. At 20% interest, you're not paying it off, you're feeding it. That's not a payment, that's a penalty. Over time, you end up paying double for something that already happened. Mark treats debt as urgent and removes it quickly because he understands the math. Alex carries it because it feels manageable, and manageable turns into permanent. That's not flexibility, that's a trap. Now, both of them increase their income from 80,000 to 100,000. Same raise, same opportunity, same chance to finally move forward. Alex upgrades everything: better apartment, better car, better lifestyle. Nothing extreme, just slightly better in every area. It feels earned, it feels right, it feels like progress. And then it becomes normal. Then it becomes necessary. Then it becomes pressure again. You felt this before: more money, but the same feeling. That's not income, that's expansion. Mark pauses and keeps his lifestyle the same, redirecting the difference instead. 20,000 per year invested becomes over 800,000 over time. That's not sacrifice, that's control. Now, this is not about Mark or Alex anymore. This is about you. Because you've done both: smart decisions and easy ones. You've saved before and you've delayed before. You know exactly how this pattern feels. So, what are your habits building right now? Not what you want, not what you plan, but what your actions are actually creating. Because this doesn't change all at once, it changes with direction. One decision repeated over time is what builds everything. So do one thing tonight: open your account and look at your habits honestly. Are you consistent or are you waiting? Because waiting has a cost, and that cost compounds. If you want real money, real habits, and real results, subscribe and stay with this channel. We're building to 5,000 subscribers, and every single one matters. If you're serious about building wealth, not just looking like it, this is where it starts.